I wanted to go over an introduction because there's so many people that are becoming interested in sugaring that have not sugared before. So let's give a little background. And hi, everybody joining. I can see who's joining, and there's so many of us tonight that I can't individually say hi to everyone like I like to. So some of the history behind me and our company is I sugared for 7 years, I believe, before we started to create our own sugaring paste. And I talked a little bit about this earlier this week, but I was a real skeptic when it came to sugaring because we had won so many awards for waxing and we were so successful with waxing. I thought, why fix what isn't broken and why bring something new in? And then I thought, well, I've got to keep my mind open and, experience, another form of hair removal that might be more natural, more organic, and I'm so happy that I did. And a lot of estheticians who've experienced sugaring and they've gotten better at working with the sugar, or basically they've gotten experienced and practiced with their sugar, will tell you that it's so much better in so many ways, which we're going to get to. Now, that's not to say that those who wax, and waxing is all that they do, that's not to say that that can't be done in an amazing, you can't do an amazing job on waxing. You absolutely can. And sugaring just provides some extra benefits, and I think it's important, especially if hair removal is all that you do. It's really important to learn this method to give yourself a chance, to choose either way. Otherwise, it's kind of what we're getting in school, and that's what we go with. But if there's a better way or something new that can improve the experience, I always say we give that a try. Hello everybody. Hi Vanessa, hi Charlotte. Okay, so I created Sugar Love, and I specifically created a cold sugaring paste. Now, why did I do that when everybody warm sugars? This has actually become a really hot topic in the sugaring world. Some of the other companies I've noticed are starting to have to talk about it because we've created such a buzz with cold sugar, and we're having to address it as a sugaring community now, which is a good thing. I think just like different waxes, they have differences, and different sugar pastes in different companies. It's kind of like hard waxes. Would you guys agree that one company's hard wax can differ quite a bit from another company's hard wax? So sugar pastes can be exactly the same. Some are more stable, some are less stable, and they crystallize faster. Some are softer overall, some are firmer, some have different ingredients, even though it looks simple. Sugar, water, and lemon juice. I've gotten a lot of feedback from all of the companies' pastes and estheticians because we're answering those kinds of questions with our company, and there's quite a bit of differing feedback, between each company. It doesn't mean that you should run from certain companies or not, but there can be quite a difference. And our cold paste is really unlike, hi Vanessa, any of the other warm pastes out there. And that's the truth. I created a whole set of warm pastes when I was making our sugar, and I decided that the cold method was absolutely the best, and it had benefits that shocked me. I didn't think, it was like a miracle when I realized that when the sugar is formulated cold, that it actually starts to gain benefits that I didn't have with the other sugars. And this was completely unexpected and unintentional And it was, again, like, it was like a miracle moment for me. Excuse me 1 second, I just have to make sure, after all my preparation, that my little door was open and it was making a sound. I hope you guys can hear me. I do have air conditioning on today, which has a little bit of a fan. Can everybody hear me well? Maybe a few of you can answer that, and that'll give me an idea for next time. I didn't want to be boiling like my last 2 webinars. I'm so happy I practiced. Okay, so sugaring is the oldest form of hair removal. There's a few differing, teachings about this. Some companies say 30,000 BC. We say about 1900 BC. But the point is, sugaring is the oldest form of hair removal. Before they even had the concept of shaving or waxing, sugaring was around, you could even say thousands of years, potentially before any other form of hair removal. So I've always wondered as a sugarist why we're not teaching it in schools, and getting programs going everywhere. The only answer I can come up with, oh good, sound is good. Thank you everybody. So the only, excuse me, I lost my train of thought there, checking on the sound. So I don't understand in schools, that's what we were talking about, why we're almost not getting taught sugaring first, with all of the benefits, the fact that it's older. And my opinion on that is that I think it's the way that the sugaring industry has been set up in one way, and I think it's just how our industry started. It started with waxing in schools, and we've kind of stuck with that. Now, how many of us know that in school, we learn to get our license, but some of the schools are awesome and they do a lot of continuing education. A lot of them, it can be the bare minimum, unfortunately, sometimes. And that's okay to get our license, and sometimes we need to just get through the basics, get that license, and, get going in our practices. So with back to Sugar Love and the different kinds of pastes, when I started to design pastes, as I said, I designed warm pastes and cold pastes, and I tested everything side by side. I had used multiple companies, not only just the big companies out there, but I had actually found labs that had made sugars for a long time. So I actually tested several different warm sugars really well before I created our own. And when I realized that in the Middle East and Egypt and families who had recipes, essentially, and there's other cultures as well, families that had recipes, a lot of them were actually using the paste cold, and that started to spark some ideas. I thought, why in Egypt they wouldn't have warmers, and this must be the way that they were always using it way back when, because it only makes sense if you think about it. Way back when they were using it, I think cold was the way to go, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from families who've sugared and created pastes for a long time that cold is the way, that is the tradition. It's the traditional way to use it. So that's a lot of what inspired me. Not only that, but you always want to weigh out the pros and cons and the benefits, so to speak. And cold produced some benefits that were not possible with warm sugar. So that's why I decided it was really important to go outside of the box and do something different, because it would be better for our businesses. So let's see. Something that we're going to get into in a minute too is that sugar paste is really diverse. It can be used 3 different ways. So we're going to go through a demo of that in a little bit. And let's see. Feel free to ask. Oh, Luann says in school she got to do 1 eyebrow wax. So sometimes we get the basics in school and we've got to go outside of school, although I'm working with schools making affordable, easy programs so that people can at least get an introduction. I think if some of us get an introduction to sugaring, that we would actually explore it a lot further if we can see it and touch it and feel it. So let's go through, let's see. We're going to go through warm versus cold sugaring. Let's do that first because that's right in front of me. So our teachings about this have brought up some little bits of controversy, as I've said, in the industry because the sugaring world's not used to, especially in the USA. Remember, sugaring is worldwide, but in the USA, it's been this very specific kind of mold that all of the companies have followed, yet sugaring is really diverse, you know, and it can be used in diverse ways. So I think it's important not to limit the ways that we can use it, as long as you become educated as well in whatever method you're using. You want to perfect your method. So first thing to note about cold versus warm is cold can be molded 1 to 2 times. 2 times would be if the hair is really short. You know, maybe the client's sweating after they've shaved. So you don't need to mold cold sugar more than 2 times. And 2 times would be when everything is stubborn. And the reason for that, which is highly misunderstood right now in the industry, is it's cold paste, therefore it's not starting at body temperature. When the paste starts at body temperature, it lowers as you work on it, so the paste gets stiff a lot of times. You can start with a softer paste, and sometimes that doesn't happen, but cold formulas, and you know, a lot of companies are also now jumping on the bandwagon saying we have both. We don't do that because I actually created both, and they're not the same, and it's misinformation to say they are the same. You can't just grab a soft paste, you know, maybe with some of the company, I'm not saying never, but I'm saying to truly cold sugar with 3 different formulas, you're going to need it formulated that way. Oh, Valerie says she can't see the video. Valerie, try a different device, or try refreshing everything in the group. You know, go back to the group, rejoin the video, see if that works. I want to make sure everybody can participate that wants to. So warm sugars, they need to be molded 3 times, and part of that is because they're starting warm and they need to seep into the follicle. Remember, the cold sugar, the temperature being so cool of the sugar, the body heat helps you seep the sugar in really quickly, and that doesn't go that way with warm pastes. They're different. So that's why with cold sugar you're eliminating a lot of time and a lot of effort with molding so many times, and it still is exactly as effective as warm sugar. So hi everybody. Oh, found me on YouTube. You know, you wouldn't believe putting the videos on YouTube and putting them that far out there was a wild ride in the beginning, but I've had schools all over the country and estheticians tell me that they watch the videos over and over and they've learned so much, so that's something I'm going to continue doing. I wanted to be kind of like, you know, our favorite TV shows. I wanted to release enough new episodes, so to speak, of learning that it was something for our industry that we could follow. Let's see. So you have cold and warm, Vanessa's asking. Our paste is formulated for, the best use for it is cold, but you can warm it really, really low, but it's at half or even a quarter of the temperature of warm sugar. And mainly that would be if your room was really, really cold. It's nice to have a warmer around just because sugars, the temperatures vary sometimes. So let's see. Sugar adjustments. Typically with the cold paste, you don't need any adjustments throughout the whole service. And oftentimes with warm paste, because of the fact that it stiffens up throughout the service, you have to mess with it more. You have to add water to it, or I hated adding water to it, not to use such a strong word, but I had teachers teach me years ago to add water. I tried adding water for 2 years, and some of the companies' pastes that I work with, it was pointless. They would be exactly as stiff as they were when I added water. And that this wasn't just one try at it or one company. So a lot of times what it leads people to need to do is replace part of their sugaring ball halfway through the service. So you use more sugar a lot of times with warm sugar. Sometimes super experienced sugarists or certain companies, depending on the way that they've formulated, that's not exactly the case. They might be able to get the sugar to stretch further or use a soft that they're really accustomed to and get it to get through the whole service. But I found the majority of estheticians that I worked with gave me the feedback that they were having to refresh their ball because it would stop picking up hair at that point that it got firm. So that's why there's less adjustments and almost no adjustments with warm, because warm gets soft and stays at a perfect temperature. Not too soft, not stiff at all, which is, it was frustrating for me when warm sugar would get stiff, and now that battle is completely gone. So thumb twirling. My girls at my spa, and I mean 10, 15 different women that I trained and work with, used to complain of cramping in their hands from thumb twirling the warm sugar constantly. It's not that as the sugar stiffens up, you might be thumb twirling less, but you are certainly thumb twirling and getting much more of a hand workout with the warm paste because you're molding more and your sugar gets stiff pretty quickly. So when that happens, you're having to use more pressure sometimes when you're molding, and my girls were getting hand cramps. With cold sugar, there's almost no thumb twirling unless your sugar gets a little bit overly soft or if the room's warm. So you eliminate the hand cramping, and that was what my girls said to me when we created the cold. And this was again a surprise. This wasn't something that I knew would even happen. It was my girls came to me and said, "Oh my God, my hand cramps are gone with the cold paste because I'm not, having to mess with it like I do with warm." And so I was happy and surprised and wanted to share with the world. So the color of our paste is due to the 100% organic sugar has a high content of basically there's a high molasses content. When sugar is processed, they take the molasses out of the sugar. Not only that, but you need to watch out with sugar paste. If you're trying to be natural and organic, some of the companies are using GMO base sugar that's also chemically processed, and everything's a chemical technically, but I mean toxic processes are being done to the sugar before it's turned into sugar paste. So, we are also eating that kind of sugar when we're eating non-organic cookies or that kind of thing, so that may not bother some of you, but for me, it's a big, big deal. GMOs make me sick when I eat them, and I'm not willing to support that industry. So I think it's important that we're asking the question, do these sugaring companies support GMOs or not? You know, especially if you really care about being super clean and organic in your spa. So the color hides the hair. So this was another happy surprise. When you have a clear sugar ball, it looks like a big black hairy ball mixed with goo, and you can see it, and it's gross. I found a big sugar ball with Brazilian hair in it on a windowsill once, and oh, watch out for big flings too. The dark color of Sugar Love, when you get a really hairy body, it's going to fill up with hair, but you can't see it with the color. It'll turn a Tootsie Roll color, is what I like to say. But you still, even when it goes Tootsie, you can't see the hair. And it was my girls again at my spa that I was training new people a few years ago only on cold, and when I showed them the comparison with warm, this didn't even occur to me. They all squealed and went, ew, you can see all the dark hair building up in that paste. That's gross. And you know, it is maybe kind of gross for a client to see. So this was a surprise benefit of our paste. Let's see. Oh, thank you so much, Julie says, for clarifying all the recent false info being blasted. I think your products are amazing. Keep up the great work. You know, I am bringing something new into our world with this paste. Even though sugaring is really old, keep in mind the sugaring industry is small, and I love all of the companies that are getting sugar out there. I think it's a good thing. If you've noticed, you know, I kind of stick with what we're doing, and you know, I don't get into the tit for tat, but the sugaring world is very strict with some of its practices, and I think it actually turns people away and you know, pushes people away who are really interested in sugaring, and that is what I wanted to avoid with our company. So that's why we're different in a lot of ways. The way that we certify, the way that we allow spas, if they get really experienced, to train their own estheticians. That's not allowed with most companies. You know, and I'm not saying 100% on anything for all companies. Some companies are following similar practices to myself. Others are very rigid, in my opinion. I experienced rigidness, and it frustrated me, and I'm a patient, nice person. So I did not like the blocks that were thrown up when I became an experienced sugarist. I thought, gosh, this is really limiting me, and that's what I want to avoid in the sugaring world in general. I hope my practices help inspire, you know, even other companies potentially to be more friendly, you know, wherever they can, because that's only going to grow the knowledge and grow sugaring as a whole. I want to see it spread all across our industry, and I want more and more estheticians to learn because it's so fantastic. And let's see, is it possible to get a bacteria infection from sugaring? Sometimes that question comes up around Brazilians, like, can you give someone a yeast infection? No, but remember, we'll go over some demo here. Soak your wipe with water. Spray the skin down, soak that wipe with water, and dissolve all the sugar, because if you leave residue on their skin, like in the Brazilian area, that could be where bacteria would start. Before I answer more questions, because they're coming in, and if I miss them here live, I'm going to go back through the thread and answer them thoroughly. I want to get through the rest of our comparison chart because this is really important. So heating, cold sugar, no heat, it's mobile. That's fantastic for us. Warm sugar has to be heated, and you know, often the warmers come at a cost of $90 to $150. So it's nice not having to, you know, expend that expenditure right when you're getting your kit and getting introduced to it. But if you are going to wax with it or get serious about it for the future, You should keep a warmer or two around because they're good for cold days. Oh, hi, Demita. Woo! This is so fun. This is like a big esthetician party. Every time I teach, it's that way live too, because I get to know everyone really well online. So this is like our church for estheticians, is what I like to say, which is why I love doing this, and I'll never stop teaching. I know this will be a lifelong commitment, I'm sure, for me. So back to our chart. So you don't need heat because cold sugar is formulated that way. Warm sugar, you're not going to experience the same. At a wedding, let's say you're doing some quick brows or something, you know, even one company I saw talking about microwaving, and I was thinking to myself, who wants to microwave it being mobile, because that requires a giant microwave, right? You know, so that's possible, but being truly mobile is you could bring a teeny mini jar with you in your little makeup kit and go to town mobile, which is awesome if they allow it in your state. Let's see. So the getting unstuck, there's actually more options. Oh, bye, Jennifer. You can watch the rest later. Love ya. So getting unstuck, there's more options with cold and less options with warm. That's true. You can grab cold sugar right out of the jar and you can apply it over the piece of sugar that's stuck, and you can remove it really easily. And that was never a method that I was taught by any companies with warm. I've tried it with warm since then, and it didn't go the same. So it tends to be easier for people to get unstuck when they get into a really bad situation. They just grab a tiny piece of fresh sugar, put it over the real sticky piece. I mean a disaster, like a disaster stuck, melty, going crazy. Take some cold sugar and mold it right over the sugar. Why? Because that sugar is cold. So it takes that overly hot and also humid and wet sugar, and it cools it down instantly, and it picks it right up, you know. So it's amazing, and I freaked out about that personally when I created cold pastes. I went, oh my God, this is something I could never do. Grabbing warm paste and putting it on a stuck piece, you're going to get more stuck. So that's where that came from. It stays pliable. This is really important. There are potentially some soft formulas that might stay pliable with other companies, but it's not going to be the same as a cold paste. And please, because I've tested this, please don't let companies tell you that they're doing warm and cold, you know, to kind of jump on the bandwagon, which I don't blame them. But you can't take a soft paste and just, ta-da, you know, it's cold. And, oh, Angie, my trainer, is here. Maybe she can tell you, too, through some of the comments, you know, when you try to take the consistencies they make for warm paste and use them cold, you're not going to have the same results. Not only that, you're not going to have 3 pastes that are cold that you can mix together. So I would like to see if companies are jumping on the bandwagon that they're actually producing a line that was designed for this, because, you know, there is a difference in the training and the consistency and the way that they work. Let's see. Excuse me, I'm reading your comments. Let me finish my list of 10 things to compare so we can keep moving. Speed sugaring. This is super important with cold sugar. This was a surprise. Remember, I didn't go out thinking I was even going to create a different kind of paste. It just happened, and these benefits are real, and they shocked me. I was literally running around my house screaming. My mom thought I went manic or something because I'm like, it's gonna go all over the world, and you just because I understood sugaring so well that I knew when I had this product and people got it, they would get that there's a big difference. And I think this is the way they originally used it. Like I said, it would make so much sense considering how it performs. So speed sugaring, it's very fast, and it beats waxing for a lot of services. And I was a speed waxer. I mean, I'm pretty much as fast as you can get with sugaring or waxing without sacrificing something where you're not cleaning properly, you're not finishing properly, you're not ever trimming. You know, I almost never trim on Brazilians even, but you know, there's maybe 1 or 2%. I've seen people with, there were like growing head hair down there. You know, you don't want a situation where your sugar's not going to make it down to their skin, okay? You want to trim that hair, but you can still not do trimming sometimes if the hair is pretty long, but it has to be not so dense. So speed sugaring also means you're only molding 1 to 2 times under ideal conditions. You're not having to adjust your sugar. There's just a lot less that you have to do with warm sugar. Excuse my thumb there. I'm trying to keep up on everybody's comments. So let's see. Cold sugar, also new sugarists, which was also a surprise, new sugarists found it much easier to hold. Maybe some of you who learned warm first can see what I'm saying here. When you learned, most of my classes when I taught warm sugar to my own estheticians at my spa, which is kind of a joke because I had to create a back alley deal with one of the big companies that she was like, you know, I don't let anybody do this, but I'll let you train. And then this is where these thoughts came from of, why are they doing this to me? I've been sugaring for 3 years. I should be able to train my own people, just like I do with waxing. Come on now, you know. So that's why I set up my company differently. Remember, with not requiring the certification for sugaring, the other reason is we have a lot of people that wax with our sugar pastes, and I don't want any restrictions on us being able to train our people. Now make sure that you really know what you're doing in your spa if you're coaching someone on sugaring. But we all know, if we've owned a spa, that you usually get a lead esthetician that's coaching. But we encourage everyone to get a certification from someone who's really experienced, you know, before they you don't want to go out there and wing it, because you're going to have little tiny things happen with sugar that'll be big things. So, yes, Angie says, I learned with warm first, and the whole class drops it on the floor. Nobody drops the cold sugar when they start, so it eliminates all of that anxiety of not even being able to hold it in the beginning. So it's super quick when people are learning this cold method in the beginning, which I wanted to make it easy. Like I've said, much easy. Oh, and Vanessa says, I almost gave up until I met you. I have so many estheticians that, because of our differences as a paste and a company being so friendly, you know, we've inspired a lot of people to pick up sugar again, and that's what I'm all about. That is definitely what I'm all about. I think success, you know, is really also measured by your growth and your feedback, and this goes for you and your clients too. I'm always listening to our estheticians, and I'm shifting things to make things the best, you know, possible scenario for my spa's success, because when you succeed, we succeed. That's really important for any company that you're working with. So let's go through some waxing and sugaring, and then I want to leave enough time. We're running low on time already, of course, but I want to leave enough time to do a little bit of a demo. If you missed my demo last night, I did a great demo with the spatula, and if this webinar goes a little longer than 6, I hope some of you can hang around. That will be only if we get into the demo a little late. I think we might with everything I'm trying to cover. I'm going to break these up into different classes real soon for us. So let's talk about sugaring versus waxing. What's the difference? Well, let's see. Sugaring requires a little bit of a different mindset. Remember that you're going to have some competence in certain areas if you've been waxing, so you're way ahead of the game for Brazilians, let's say. Tanya says, what's the shelf life? We're at 2.5 years and still going on the jars that we're testing. So 2.5 years shelf life. Remember, if you, contaminate your jar, let me take a sip of this before I lose my voice. So, if you contaminate your jar with bacteria, something like that, unknowingly, remember organic products, this goes for toners, creams, serums, anything that's more naturally preserved, as soon as air starts getting into the bottle, you're cutting into your shelf life time. This is really important. So clients at home, if they start using a serum, get half the bottle full of air. The air oxidizes and starts to age the product prematurely. The products are, sanitary and sealed. So remember that these shelf lives are from brand new stuff. Or let's say you buy a peel for back bar. If you use half of it and then don't use it for a long time, the fact that half the bottle's full of air is going to age products faster. This actually goes for all products, believe it or not, but sugar is the same. So you're welcome, Tanya. Let's see. You know what's really stable though are oil-based products, even when you start getting air in there. You can always refrigerate or put products in the freezer, like say you do big promo on peels, like I said, and then you got air in there, you're not going to use it for a while, keep it out of the light, put it in the fridge to try to extend it, even though it's going to prematurely kind of start to age. So our fermented peel products and that kind of thing are actually going to age the quickest because they're the acids are so potent in there that the shelf life we've found is about a year on the acids. The triple blemish control is longer, but the fruit acid serums and the peels are a little shorter. So let's get back to sugaring versus waxing. That's why I like airless jars, Cindy says. Let's see. Okay. So waxing adheres to live skin cells. You'll hear this a lot in sugaring versus waxing. What that means is mainly there's water in live skin cells, and sugar, even if you drop a drop of water on a sugar ball, sugar repels water initially, so it's going to repel the water, and in the live skin cells, the sugar is going to repel the water unless your sugar gets too much sweat and too much water or humidity, in it. Then it's going to get overly watery. That's a completely different situation. But sugar in its ideal temperatures and its ideal consistency, which is how you'll be using it most of the time, is going to repel it's going to, repel the water that's in your skin cells, so it can't adhere to the live skin cells. Now, saps and whatnot, like I talked about last night in waxes, are going to stick like the dickens sometimes to live skin cells. That's why you get more irritation, redness, and that kind of thing, along with some other points that we're going to go over also create more of a scenario like that. So let's see. Waxing pulls hair against its natural direction of growth. So we went over this last night, but we're going to go over it again. And what that means is, this is my best analogy. We all get it when I say this. When a pore, let's say on the nose, is going this direction, we extract it in that direction. And we know the blackhead or whatever we're going after pops right out as long as we go behind, behind it and push it out in the direction that it's going. If we try to do the reverse, the blackhead won't even come out a lot of times. And if you think about the hair, the same way, when you're waxing, you're going completely against the direction that the hair wants to go. So sugar does a couple of things that are opposite of waxing. The glycolic in the sugar and the lemon juice soften the skin and they lubricate the follicle, number one. Also, that helps if someone hasn't scrubbed and whatnot. You're in a much better scenario a lot of times with sugar because it has a natural kind of exfoliant effect, more so than wax because of the glycolic and the lemon juice. And the lemon juice is really softening, so it softens the skin and softens the hair. Then you're pulling that hair out in the direction that it wants to go. So it's going to be less painful. It's not going to warp their follicles over time. Those recurring ingrowns can still happen with sugaring, but they happen a lot more with waxing because you're tearing the follicles open the wrong way sometimes and scarring the follicles in a way. We want some scar tissue to stop the hair growth, but not that kind of scar tissue. That creates a pore, or excuse me, a follicle that's going to fill up with a hair and maybe get badly infected over and over again. That's part of why sugaring is so much better. From comfy on the couch, loving it, Yolanda. Hi! So let's get to our next subject here, the healthy difference. So sugaring is organic. A lot of waxes are not sugar, water, lemon juice. Ideally, I want to see everybody going towards organic. We've got too many toxins in our world. I've had to learn the hard way. Even though I'm young, I've had a lot of health issues that I'm thankful for because it forced me to look at these things. And sometimes, even if it's overwhelming to think about switching all your products or your food, I talk to clients about this stuff all the time, and start with one thing at a time. And remember, for me, it became a moral issue with, once I understood toxins and what they were doing to people, I started actually feeling guilty using fragrances. Or if someone would say, I just got over having breast cancer, if I'm using a fake fragrance on them, there's well-known studies and lots of information out there about how you're recreating the same bad scenario. So it became a moral issue for me, which is what drove me to push and create exactly a medically active line, with the best actives and all of that. But ultimately it's got to be non-toxic, but it's got to work. I was kind of a medically active product girl before I created my own line. So the beautiful smelling things, and mainly plant-based. Not that all plant-based things aren't potent. They are in some cases, but that they had to be super active, like transform people. They would come in and tell me, oh my God, I've completely changed, and this has never happened before with products. We get that feedback all the time from sugaring and from our skincare. So that was really important to me. Let's see. There's no risk with sugaring of burning the skin. So with wax, the temperatures of the wax, even though they're not that high, they shouldn't be that high, but let's see. Can sugar be used with retin-A or chemical peels? I will answer in just a second, Molly. And then Rebecca, I see you have a question too. Just give me 1 minute and I will get back to those, and then hopefully everyone can hang around for a little bit of extra time because my demo is probably going to take maybe 15 or 20 minutes over, which is fine because you can hop off and come back and watch the recording, and it's going to go on YouTube too. YouTube, because it's, you know, people can project it onto their, did you guys know on those smart TVs now, speaking of our YouTube, we have a smart hub on our TV now, which I just figured out, which is insane because I'm super technological, but this is to help you if you have a latest flat screen and you have the YouTube that you can link into, you can pull our videos up in schools or full, you know, at home on a nice big screen without really doing anything extra, just looking up our YouTube channel. So that's fantastic. We're going to get one of those for our classroom. So with waxes, you're risking, when you overheat the skin, and even just the heat when it's at the right temperatures, it can be damaging to the skin. So with sugar, you're completely avoiding that. Or if you've ever had an accident while you're cleaning and your knob turns way up, and then you got to be careful to pay attention if you're ever cleaning your pot and that those knobs move easily. I've seen people have accidents where it literally turned all the way up and they didn't notice. And I had an esthetician work for me once that it happened over and over, and I'd be peed in the morning because she'd clean, and then in the morning 5 or 6 different times my wax would be scalding hot. You know, this is if you leave your pots on. I recommend using a timer on your warmers so they turn on and off. They turn off at night, they turn on early in the morning, so it's all ready to go when you arrive. Let's see. Oh, hi Amanda. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Vanessa. I tried to do my glam for everybody. Oh, by the way, speaking of that, I want to work with maybe a makeup artist, if anyone is one, to do my makeup, my hair, and that kind of thing for the videos, and I'd love to help support you in your business. So let's finish up on sugaring versus waxing. What sugaring will do and won't do. Sugaring will help eliminate ingrowns, prevent new ingrown hairs, extract all hair colors and textures. So sometimes people ask about ethnicity or if it's curly, or, you know, hair is hair and it's going to be compatible with everyone. We see all different kinds of hair and all ethnicities, and everyone is treated the same. Sugaring is going to successfully treat all skin types and improve the skin tone texture. It's also going to be much less irritating. So there's going to be less redness, sometimes not less histamine. Now, sometimes people are confused about this. When people have high levels of histamine, it's inside their body. It's not something we're doing on the surface. We're just invoking the inner histamine. Oh, that's pretty good. I'll have to use that again later. So we're evoking the inner histamine by pulling out the hair. Vellus hair on the face is going to do that the most. Ah, like Home Alone, right? So make sure if they're histamine prone or they have allergies, like I have a guy that's gluten, he has to go gluten free. Every time he cheats and eats gluten, it looks like he's having almost an allergic reaction. When we sugar him, he knows what's going on, we know what's going on, and I tell him, for goodness sakes, would you please just take the antihistamine, you know, so that it doesn't get so bad when you actually cheated, right? Cheated and ate the things that cause the histamine that he knows he's allergic to. So let's see. Sugaring will not, just a quick recap, burn the skin, damage the dermal cells. It will not pit the delicate facial cells, scar the follicle or the surrounding tissue, or promote cross-contamination. It's much easier to cross-contaminate when you're waxing. So that's actually something that's friendly, you know, for new estheticians. Let me, without poking you with my finger again, let me look at your questions. All right. Can you use Dana says, can you use a piece of saran wrap at the top of the product or on the lid? There's still going to be air in the jar that's aging your product prematurely. Once you get air in the jar, that is kind of that. You're starting the process of maybe that bottle only lasting 6 months or 8 months. Not with some products. Some products we have are really stable. Like the sugar, I've messed with it, and it just won't crystallize. I've gotten a lot of calls from people saying that their sugar paste has crystallized really quickly. Like it got a little bit of air in it and they let it sit for a month and it completely ruined the entire tub. That will not ever happen with our sugar. So if you've been frustrated by your sugars crystallizing, it doesn't happen with the cold paste. You'd have to do something really horrible that I haven't already tried, and I've tried a lot. I've tried contaminating it, adding water to it, you know, I've put it through the ringer. So how is sugaring on the skin compared to waxing? For example, those who are using retinols, sugaring is going to be much friendlier. So retinols and fruit acids and enzymes and that kind of thing, you always want to make sure you're following the similar rules with waxing. They need to get off of it temporarily, but sugaring is going to be less likely to do damage, and that is the truth because of all the benefits that we just talked about. And let's see. Can sugar be used with Retin-A or after chemical peels? I have a lot of people that are on Retin-A and chemical peels, and as long as they back off of those products for a week, sometimes a little longer than that, if they're on Accutane or something like that, that's where it can get dangerous with any kind of hair removal. Accutane or any generics that are versions of that. I'm just getting through all of the questions, so please ask questions, and remember, I'll be answering the rest of the questions. If I missed you, don't worry, I won't miss your question after the video. I go through everything and make sure that I also write really thorough answers. Let's see. What's the ideal temperature, Luann says, of the sugar when beginning the treatment? So the room, Angie kind of answered this, but the room should be about 70 degrees is ideal. Now, when you get down to 65 degrees or below, your room's going to be really cold, and the paste is going to stiffen up, which is why it's a good idea to have a warmer on, or if it gets snowy and you have a hard time heating up your room, you want to be prepared for different situations with sugar. So if your room gets too hot, on the other hand, you want to have a lot of firm on hand, and you don't want to keep your sugars in an 80 or 90 degree car or room before you start working. Your sugars need to be for 2, 3, 4 hours. They need to be in the right temperature. Otherwise, you need to go for firm. So if your sugars get way overheated for some reason in a car or in a room, you need to use way more firm than you normally would. Let's see. And I put the temperature gauge on top of the sugar container, so that's why I'm curious about sugar temperature versus room temperature. Room temperature is going to affect sugar temperature. So you want to make sure that you have some ideal conditions in your room if you don't, there's workarounds. And now for our demo, this is what everybody wanted to see. I'm so sorry that it's 6 o'clock. But I'm going to get this into the swing of things of these webinars, and it's looking like if we have this much to cover, we need about an hour and a half. So yay for demo. So we're going to demo waxing. We're going to demo the spatula again. I'm going to go through mixing pastes because that's what we're talking about, room temperatures. We don't recommend doing the whole, you can add water to paste. It's extremely hard to mix in. I told you my experience with mixing water in for trying to do it for 2 years and get the paste to do what my teacher told me it would, and it never did. That was something else that happened to me when I was trained, was my trainer said, oh, you can use one ball, for the entire service. Now I tried their soft, I tried their medium consistency, I tried everything you could possibly try. I mean, I had years of experience when I was trying these things, and it did not frickin' work, let me tell you. That's why our formula is different. Our formula is completely different, and it's important that we differentiate, even though people are so unfamiliar in some cases with the sugaring world. There are big differences in sugars. You might get a company where, like I said, you get a tiny error in the jar and it ruins your whole sugar tub, and then you're wasting money. So you want to make sure you start with a good quality product. Let's see. I may have missed this, but would you go over your sugar paste? Oh yeah, we're going to do it right now, live demo. Woo! Okay, so let's go to the original and let's explain. We're going to go through sugaring first, mixing pastes, because sugaring is what everybody's interested in. Now with the spatula method, it's going to be a little trickier mixing pastes, but what I would recommend is keeping your soft and your firm warmed a little bit so you can dip your original in and kind of mix them together, because usually when you're mixing you do it with a gloved hand. So you could always pre-mix and then put it on the spatula, but your spatula doesn't have fingers, okay? So you got to have a way to mix, when you need to. So here is our original. Now the ones that can be heated into wax, for those who either do both, we still offer waxing, believe it or not. I was so attached from my years of waxing, and then we also have clients, every now and then someone has a weird citrus allergy or something and we have to use all hard wax on them. So the original is good when it's your base sugaring paste. We'll go over the wax section in a minute, but it's your base sugaring paste for everything. So if you were going to buy a case of sugar, you'd want something like 8 original or 10 original, 1 firm, 1 soft. You're not going to use very much unless you're in Hawaii like Luann and a few of my other ladies. I can't wait to come to Hawaii, by the way. How fun! We were thinking about doing a master class there just so everybody could come to have a little time in Hawaii together while we're learning. Wouldn't that be fun? So that's still in the works. Oh, hi, Grace. So the original is what you're going to start with, and what does that mean? Well, a lot of times you're going to use the original by itself. All you're going to need is original in a lot of conditions. Other times, if your paste is too cold, like your room goes below 65 degrees, most likely you're going to need to dip your ball in a little bit of warmed soft paste or scoop a little bit of warm soft paste. You don't need much to soften it. Our new soft consistency is actually firm enough that you can sugar with it sometimes in really cold rooms. So sometimes on large body parts people prefer a softer paste, And you can mix half soft into your original, or if you get really experienced and your room is super cold, you can use all soft in some cases. My girls at my spa have been doing that for legs and whatnot sometimes. The new soft paste is still very soft, but it's more like the original that we created 2 years ago. If any of you sampled it when we were tweaking it, and then making our 3 different pastes. We listen to your feedback, by the way. Also, if you ever get, this just happened this week with one of our estheticians, if you ever get a sugar that feels like it's, this is really important to go over, is, let's say you're used, we always get a consistent paste when we cook and we test it to make sure, but there's a threshold that we have. So, we've got a scale of what's original. So something that's original that we've cleared through testing as original could be slightly on the firmer side or slightly on the softer side, but once it goes over the hump into another category, we will not label it and send it out as original. And that's something that's been a big problem with some of the companies, because sugar is super volatile. So if they're not doing an in-spa test on the pastes before they go out, that's why you'll get a big bad batch of paste that was supposed to be firmer and it's too soft. That's highly unlikely, but it has happened in some cases. You are always welcome to do a free exchange. Keep your boxes and we will pay the shipping. If your paste seems really, really off for some reason, we guarantee that you get the originals. If you're getting original and it feels different, sometimes it can be slightly different, and that's normal, but it shouldn't feel like it's off. And if it does, we guarantee it. And that's the best you can do with sugar, because there are going to be variations when you create it. So the original is your base for everything. So you need a lot of original when you're ordering. A lot of times students will tell them to get all original, or we'll tell them to get some original, some firm, so that if they get sticky and all that, that they can get out of those situations and they can blend. And Vanessa says, do you warm the original? The way I designed the sugar, you don't need to warm it, but I've had sugarists that have warm sugared for several years, and this is what they did. In our paste, our cold paste still maintains, this is amazing, it maintains all of the benefits in our chart, even if you warm it at super low temperatures, because it's a totally different formula to start. So that's exciting. So if you're used to warm sugar, again, I'm not jumping on the warm sugar bandwagon, but thanks to feedback from multiple spas who decided to warm it at ultra low temperatures just to see if that was more of a preference for them, they found that it was perfect for them. So if you're finding it difficult not to have it slightly warmed to start, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but keep it really, really low, because the more heat you get on the sugar before you start, the more likely it could possibly melt down. Oh, I'm confused. Vanessa says, all of our sugars were made to be cold, so pulled out of the jar without being in a heater. So if they get put in a heater and overheated, you're going to start with a paste that's maybe too warm, and it might goo out, is what I like to call it, on you. So that's the original, and let's go over soft. So soft can be used sometimes in cold rooms by itself. Vanessa, I hope that answered your question. So soft can be used by itself on large body parts sometimes. And also what it's amazing for is when your room is, when you get experienced, let me say this, when you get experienced, you're going to be mixing soft into your original on a lot of large body parts as a preference, because it'll start out slightly softer, and it tends to be that as sugarists in general, as they advance, they like softer formulas on larger body parts, because you can move quicker, and there's a little bit of benefit, you know, to that. Sometimes my original, I'll get on a leg, and if I don't mix with the soft, I'll be like, oh, you know, it's staying too stiff. The way to gauge that is if it's not getting to that perfect pliable consistency like you see in all my videos, that's where you want your paste to be. That's why you mix pastes together. And I don't recommend, again, trying to mess with putting water in the paste. It's much easier to learn to mix in different kinds of pastes, and it takes a long time to smash and mix in the water. And also, I was taught by someone who'd been training for 15 years, and what she told me was possible with mixing in water was, it wasn't possible. I mean, I tried it, I had several other estheticians try it. The paste would not keep going, you know, whether we mixed in water or not. If your room gets cold by accident for some reason, could you just put original in the jar in a warm bowl of water? Sure, you could warm it up with water. You can put it in a wax warmer. Also, here's a big trick for that, Cynthia, is keep a jar of soft warmed up in your warmer, and take the ball of paste that's really stiff and dip the ball, just dip it a little bit into the soft, blend it as much as you can. It might be kind of stiff, but here's another little trick when you're mixing. If they're not mixing perfectly in your hand, when you start sugaring, that's actually going to mix them together on the skin, and the body heat when you lay that sugar down is going to help blend those two sugar types together even more, especially when you're adding soft to really, really, really cold paste. It's funny because in my sugaring classes, people will leave their box of sugars, their kit, in their car a lot of times, and we've had it go either way, where it was frickin' freezing or it was super hot, and then we went, oh no, you know, we got to really like dial it in so that people know, don't leave your sugar box in the car or in really bad conditions, because if you're leaving it in a freezing car, it's like putting it in the refrigerator overnight. That's not what we're supposed to do with it, you know what I mean? So you just have to be logical, and it's actually pretty simple once you get the hang of it. Oh, hi Rachel. I'm doing the demo now, so it's perfect timing for whoever's joining in. Hi Carla. So we've got all three sugar types here. Here's the firm now. So firm, I did not design firm to be used by itself. There's some confusion about this sometimes. The only conditions that it might be possible is like an 80 or 90 degrees with someone soaked in sweat. But people have different preferences for different reasons. They get really, really hot hands, a lot hotter than mine. They have strange circumstances going on. Like I said, their sugar gets left in 90 degrees or 95 degrees. In that case, firm might work for you, but firm is going to stiffen up like a lot of the warm pastes if you try to use it by itself, and it's not going to be very friendly if you are trying to cold sugar with the proper consistency. Does that make sense? So, oh, Vanessa says, I'd like to see an unedited Brazilian with minimal stopping to see how long it takes realistically, or to see how much, how speedy it can be. My average Brazilians are 15 to 20 minutes, even 10 minutes on some people. What takes extra time is prepping and finishing. Now, my average time with warm sugars, several different companies, because extra molding and a whole bunch of other factors that are different, and It's really real, no matter what you're hearing out there. I I'm all about also teaching people reality. You know, for me, this is about us being successful, most of all, in our businesses. And to be successful, we need to know how things really are working. Most of the companies, too, that are talking about cold sugar, they've never used our formula or a formula that was designed with 3 pastes. They'll tell you that if you ask them. So that's part of the reason that there's confusion going on. And thanks to my differences, sometimes, you know, they may kind of have the opinion that they won't be touching the cold paste, if you know what I mean. But to each their own. There's enough success, even if you've got a neighbor that's an esthetician that's rubbing you the wrong way, that's catty, let's say. There's enough in this world for all of us. We attract what we are. You know, there's enough business in your town, and whatever the scenario is. So what separates success is, you know, your level of growth, and then the impression that you're leaving on. Oops, sorry, we lost me for a second there. Everybody still there? I see you all viewing still. So anyway, don't take in the mentality, you know, that can be out there. There's some fabulous companies, there's some fabulous trainers that are just as excited and fantastic as I am with being motivational. But if you're running into a company with skincare, sugaring, whatever it is, if it's not jiving with you and it's not lifting you up and being positive and helping you grow, then don't do it. There's something better out there. And that is my opinion about that. We don't have time to waste on other people's crud and negativity. And there's always going to be that stuff out there. I think it's kind of a spiritual choice, as I say, to take your energy and consciously focus it on your success. If your books aren't full yet, imagine whatever color. Those appointments show up green on our schedule. I tell our new estheticians, imagine seeing green, and then all of a sudden you'll get an inspiration of, oh, maybe I should go out and do this, versus when you put yourself in that mindset of, I'm going to get super funked out, you know, on whatever it is. But it's a conscious effort. It's really easy to kind of go into the other patterns of thinking. Okay, so let's see some sugar in action. That's right, Grace. We want lots of light and growth and positivity in our lives, so it's our responsibility to choose that every day, and that's how I became successful. Did you guys know that I started in the recession and I went $20,000 into debt, and everyone was losing jobs, everyone was in a funk at the time, and I built my business to the biggest it had ever been in my entire career after years during the recession. I skyrocketed my business, and that was thanks to thinking positively, you know, and making sure I stayed inspired. Every day I switched my thinking. I stopped thinking, oh crap, my books aren't empty or this, and getting hung up on it, and I started thinking success, and kaboom, even during a recession. So we can consciously create our business and our reality, and it will really truly be supported, you know, when we make those choices. Okay, so let's do some sugaring. So this is the cold paste method. A lot of people have trouble grabbing their paste, and like I said, I should have timed this to be more like an hour and a half. I apologize, I'm going way over time here, but I don't want to skip this demo because this is what everybody voted for. You know what? I'm going to have to switch this glove because it's going to be contaminated after I do this. So I'm kind of using my arms again because it's the easiest to see. And I should have, while I was at it, done this one. Remember I went over this in depth last night. You need to soak the skin and warn your client this is going to be a little bit chilly, but teach them I'm soaking the skin with the toner to dissolve sweat, bacteria, dirt, anything that might be present on the skin. If you just squirt a tiny bit of toner like this, even a lot, even if you try to soak it, what you're going to end up doing is moving dirt, bacteria, you know, sweat, whatever it is, you're going to be moving a lot of it around versus picking it up, because when you spray the solution on the skin, you're actually dissolving everything. I was just thinking before the video, we were having like a little emergency with a leak in the ceiling and all this stuff going on. And I was just talking about being positive, and Sophia, which I saw earlier, and I were talking about the other day how sometimes a day at work might be crazy, but you know, it's all about your mindset every day. So when you're learning sugaring, keep that mindset positive. I don't even start classes now without telling people this is going to feel awkward, it's going to feel wrong, it's going to seem messy, and you've got to push through those feelings, stay motivated, stay positive. If you're learning Brazilians, even if you're waxing, whatever you're doing, stay positive and get bodies under your belt. Bodies and practice are the only thing that are going to create success. There's other things in our world like eyelashes, eyelash extensions, microblading, you know, and without a lot of practice, you don't become an expert in those things either. So it's nothing new. It's just a matter of getting through the beginning stages when you're sugaring. So a tiny bit of powder is all you need. Hopefully, seeing these last couple videos I've done, they've been really good for prep and finishing. I suggest you watch those. This arm is a little beat up right now for some reason. Remember, if people go work out, you can see I have a little, it's not really an ingrown, but more like a little, basically the follicles can do this. If somebody, now say you're in the South, for example, if somebody does go outside after their treatment and sweats a lot, you could have some of these little guys show up either quickly or a couple weeks later. So you always have to investigate if there's a problem. One thing, I just watched another company's video on prepping and whatnot. They were massaging everything with their hands, and then they were rinsing their gloves off with soap and then grabbing the sugar. That's not sanitary. We have to use medical grade disinfectants on whatever we're cleaning. So it's best not to contaminate your glove in the first place. I had never seen that, and I was like, wah! You know, the teacher in me freaked out, and I won't disclose who it was because I'm not interested in that. It's just an example of how, you know, other trainings and things might have some things going on. It doesn't mean that person's not a great trainer. It doesn't mean they're not passionate. It just means that it's incorrect. We need to know the difference. Okay, this is really important. Let me get this towards you. So, your fingers to grab sugar, they need to sink in the middle of the jar, not the side. Watch how slow I'm going to sink my fingers. So these three, pinky out like the T joke, sink those three fingers in and the thumb, and then this is the trick. Pull the sugar out. So I don't quite have enough. How do I get more now that I'm here? There's a giant tail right here. You keep grabbing tail. Pull tail up, grab more tail. Sounds funny. Tail can mean something else. Grab more of the tail until you get a complete ball, and it's that simple to grab your sugar out of the jar. Let's see. Oh, Dana said, where did I go? I'm still here. I disappeared for a second earlier. Okay, so grabbing the sugar is something, I show people this in class, but when they're learning everything, people will tell me, oh my God, I don't even remember you going over that, or did you go over that? I absolutely cover every single one of these things when I teach. The problem is you're learning 100 little tiny things, and you know what? It takes videos and continued learning to finally soak in all of this stuff. That's what's really going on. So, with sugaring, make sure first, if you're learning, your hand needs to be either in L position. This part of your wrist, keep it relaxed. You should never be molding with your wrist bent this way or bent this way. You're going to get carpal tunnel or some, you know, I'm not saying that's exactly what will happen, but you're going to get a breakdown. Don't do that. You don't want to do that long term. So then we've got 3 steps. So let's go over that. When you're molding, you're going to mold, make sure you're in correct position, either this way or this way, and keep the wrist straight. And there's 3 steps. Now some companies make this into 6 steps, and it really confused me when I started sugaring. They were like, okay, mold, now relax the shoulder, now wiggle the wrist, now do, you know, and I was like, ah! When I was learning, I couldn't absorb more than what the basics were, and believe it or not, we've made it into 3 basic steps, and it's still challenging when people start. So you're going to mold the sugar, pull back, and then flick. Now remember, when you pull back and flick, which are step 2 and 3, they go together. You don't pull back and sit there, or your paste is going to get stuck to the skin. How many times can you go over the same spot? With sugaring, you can go over the skin more times than waxing, but you do have to keep an eye on the skin because you can overdo it. So one thing we don't add into our steps to remember is you're gliding the sugar on the skin, so don't overdo it with your pressure, and make sure your wrist is relaxed. You don't want any extra pressure on your poor little joints, you know. Oh, by the way, your hand is going to have to get in shape. You're going to be sore, which is normal, for 2 weeks when you start working on a lot of clients. So thumb twirling is something also that we're going to get more into detail on. Thumb twirling is where your thumb is barely touching the sugar, and you're just forming the sugar where you want it to go. So let's do something scary. What do I do? Okay. So what you want to do, let me get I'm used to doing this with gravity, so I'm going to try to do this without knocking you guys down or falling off my chair here. You want to take your thumb in a combination of thumb twirling, gravity. First of all, whatever direction your sugar went, make sure you tap and move the sugar back to the tip. It's very gentle. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do this for the camera. Tap, move, tap, move, tap, move, tap, move. Now watch, I am so good at this. I can drop the sugar off of my fingers, tapping and moving. So it's about to fall off. So all that sugar was smashed onto my hand. Some of it's going to remain. Don't worry about that. Leave it there. Forget about it. It's not going to get in your way. It's okay. I know we like to keep everything perfect and clean. It's okay. leave it there, get the bulk of the sugar back in your control, and everything will be fine. So now you use your thumb twirl. You're barely touching the sugar and form the sugar. You want the sugar ideally almost out in front of your fingers before you lay it down. If your ball is back here before you lay your sugar down, it's going to give you some trouble, okay? Let me just show you, because my glove is clean. Actually, I'm going to do this on a strip because I think I did touch my arm. I can tap and move and drop my sugar somewhere else. You guys can gain this kind of control of sugar. All right, so now I'm going to move my ball back to the tips of my finger. This is the kind of thing I've been dying to do videos on, is show the details that everybody forgets about, even though they get one-on-one time. Make sure wrist is straight. So my hand was down like this. Owie for my wrist. Make sure your wrist is straight. And to start, you do a nice slow mold, okay? Everyone thinks when they pick up sugar that it's totally crazy and messy and out of control. That's completely normal. Keep it in perspective. Don't let it take over and discourage you from sugaring. My wrist may pop out of perfect position because I'm working on myself, but don't give up. You can gain control. So another thing is, you don't whip your sugar strip off all in one piece. On an area that large, you're going to do 2 strips. So when you have another hand that you're anchoring with, see, and I can detach that easy just to show you something. You're going to have this much control. Just keep practicing. So you're going to flick, re-anchor the skin close. Now you attach. Let's say you are detached and you're trying to get back to your sugar. Attach to the very end. We're not molding. This is somewhere where people way over mold when they start. Attach, pull back, flick. Okay? When your sugar is sitting there and you need to reattach. A lot of times people go too far down onto the sugar. If you're not at the very top or the peak, you're going to have a problem. So we'll do this section. Remember, with cold sugar, watch their hair, okay? If their hair isn't coming up easily. Now this is taught in warm sugaring companies, and recently one of the other companies was saying, well, you can't get the sugar to seep without 3 molds. That's not true. My sugar teacher of 15 years, when she was teaching me, she said a technique used with warm sugars too is you put the sugar on the skin and let it sit for a minute. Sometimes with really stubborn short hair, I'd lay down a strip. So that's what I mean by cold sugar seeps. The body heat seeps the sugar in. That's why you can mold less, because it's a totally different formula. It's also, when you're molding real slow, when it's stiff, you're allowing the sugar a little bit more. That's only in the beginning. That's not the whole service. That's 2 or 3 molds. But make sure that you mold slow enough when the sugar's stiffer that you're allowing it to seep, because it's a little bit cold. So the body heat needs to do the work and seep. But that's nice because your hand doesn't have to do that work. Okay? Don't wrap too far around the arm, by the way. In the beginning, people sometimes in class, they start like going for the whole 360. And no, don't do that. Just try to get kind of, across the top of the arm, because you're going to do this underside this way. So you don't need to wrap all the way around when this is much easier to reach all that anyway. Okay. So let's see my mold. Look at my lip, okay? Your fingers are now your new wax stick. Okay, what does that mean? Well, you need a lip of sugar in front of your fingers. You have to keep an eye on that lip. If you don't keep an eye on that lip and you run out of sugar, it's like dragging a sticky wax stick through the hair with no wax lip on it. Do you guys know what I mean by that? Watch your lip, and you know that goes for waxing as well. So 1, 2, flick. That was a little piece, so it didn't need 2 flicks. Let's see. Luann, what about shavers? Elaborate. Oh, shavers with when they're coming in the first time for sugaring is what I'm assuming. And it's going to take 2 to 4 appointments for their growth to get on the same cycle. So it's never really all going to be on the same cycle, but basically you're going to get spiky hairs that were shaved that are still going to show up for 2 or 3 appointments. And when the hair is really, really short after shaving, you need to mold twice or put some sugar on and let the sugar sit, you know. Now I have a really long middle finger, as funny as that sounds. So to make my surface, my finger surface flat, I have to bend that finger slightly. Then pull back and flick. Okay? Oh, thank you. I did my brows. I did my makeup fancy for y'all today. I do have Southern family, so if you've ever wondered when I'm talking, some people tell me, do you have an accent? And I have sort of a strange crossover from the part of my family that's Southern, and I don't even realize it, but there you go. There was from my Southern roots. All right, pull back, flick, attach, flick. Let's look at that attach again. When you have one long strip, brows are on fleek. That's right. I was joking in a post a while ago that sometimes I get disturbed if I am looking at my eyebrows and I haven't put them on. That would be the esthetician in me. Okay, this is really important. Mold, pull back, flick. Now, where do you touch to get going on the second flick? Just attach on the very end, attach, pull back, flick. Okay? Very end, attach, pull back, flick. Okay? People get really, really confused about what to do for that second pull when they get started. That's one little detail, like all those things I was talking about that people miss. So this is just original sugar, so let's look at it now. So this is the perfect pliable consistency. Can you guys see how it's nice and gooey and pliable, but it's not runny at all? So this is something I couldn't achieve, like I said, with other pastes. They just weren't formulated this way, is the best way to describe it. They would stiffen up. You know what we'll do? We'll take some firm and we'll see if we can get the firm, probably in a different video. We'll see if we can get the firm stiff and doing what a lot of the warm pastes do. After you get going, they start to get too stiff. Okay? So what do I do if I'm in the middle of a Brazilian and my sugar's melting down? What do, right? This comes up. So we're going to take the firm. Ideally, you want to get it warmed a little bit in your warmer if you're going to do this in the middle of your service. Oh, thank you, Lisa. I've been dying to do this detail work, really, so I'm glad I'm spending extra time. I'm sorry this is so long, but this will be super useful for everyone to review. So I'm still holding this. So this is reality. What do you do? How do you get this together in the middle of a service, right? I'm going to have to stack one on top of the other so you can see it. you get a stick, you put the heel of your hand on the jar, and this part may be hard to see. You're going to use the tail again. So this is firm, and this room is pretty cold, sorry. Let's see. So you want to lift and twirl. Now you just have to do a tiny bit of thumb twirling. Just make sure you don't lose your jar. So see how I'm starting to build up a tail? Remember I told you that tail and grabbing the tail to get more? So when you have to do this in the middle of a service, this is what you have to do to add little bits. Now this will go much faster if you warm your firm a little bit, but you guys know how stiff firm is. This is completely unheated. This room's about 68 degrees right now. So I mean, even unheated, this is a compatible sugar to add during a service. So if I'm thinking in my head, okay, I need more than this, then you just keep twirling, and I'm obviously not going very fast because we're teaching here, but you know, and then you got to keep this ball starting to melt this way. This is how you thumb twirl. Remember, thumb twirling is not smash and twirl, or you're going to do this. This is what I see new sugarists do. Ah! No! You need to barely touch your sugar. It's like a little dance with your thumb, okay? Then you want to get your little stringy detached like this, right over the jar. It'll just detach. Then put your firm in your original in the middle of your service, okay? And then blend it as much as you can, but remember that their body heat is going to blend them together, okay? Let's watch you. Now I'm getting dared. Let's watch you sugar your lip to see how tough you are. Oh, I'm actually pretty tough after all these years. Students work on me all the time if we're low on a model, and you know, with good instruction, it doesn't make me nervous at all being the model. So I think even when people don't know what they're doing, if you have the right instructor watching over you, you're not going to harm anyone, even your first day of touching someone and doing something. So I do this on Skype. I teach people one-on-one like this on Skype, and I'm able to prevent, you know, any bad situations from happening. So now we're all blended together. So that's how you fix sugar that has overheated during your service. And with soft sugar, you're mainly going to mix it in before the service, because you'll be able to tell that your sugar is rock hard and it needs to be more pliable. Okay, so let's demo sugar with the spatula again. I've got a really good video on this from yesterday. This is how you remove your glove after sugaring. Keep this one on to sanitize everything. Make sure you take your Cavicide wipe or whatever you have and sanitize the glove a little bit first if you need to do that because you were touching their body. And then try to save supplies and sanitize with this glove rather than using more gloves. You can definitely do that, but you got to clean off whatever the residue is on this glove so that you're not contaminating everything with the person you were just touching, okay? So one class I told people how to do that, and they thought that I was saying they were supposed to sanitize gloves and use them on different clients. It was pretty funny. I was like, oh God, no. That would be a horror story. Okay. So a little bit of powder. Your hands, no matter how calm you are and no matter how much you don't sweat, you will sweat with your glove on just because there's no air circulation in them. Okay, so this is the original. I'm not going to use a full amount just because I'm going to I'm demoing the 3 different ways to use sugar, and I went over sugar mixing and blending because it's really, really hard to retain that information when you're learning. Sometimes people's day 1 training, we don't even get heavily into mixing because it would completely overwhelm our students. They've never touched it. They're freaked out a little bit because it's so different, you know, different yet the same. So let's see. First I'm going to try to, this is a little tiny ball. First I'm going to get my sugar off of one side, because you want a lip, just like your hand. You want a lip in front of you. And remember to go slow. Always ask clients over and over and over again. Ask them if you, and I'm so sorry this is going on so long, but this is super important, and I'll be able to get my timing down for these much better as I practice. Make sure you go slow when the sugar is cold. And with the spatula, okay, here's that. What do we do with the spatula? In the second flick, same thing with the hand. Attach to the very end, pull back, and flick. Okay? So maybe seeing both side by side too, it's easier to see. Remember with a spatula, I highly recommend, excuse me, my glove on this hand's getting itchy, if you heard that. So let's see. With the spatula, I think almost everywhere except Brazilians are going to be really tricky with a spatula because of the angles where you have to pull back and then use the spatula to flick. It's maybe not a bikini you could do, but you know, a Brazilian and getting on the labia with a spatula, which I know all of you would love to be able to do that because you're used to a stick. But I highly recommend learning the hand method for Brazilians. I think it's going to be the quickest, most compatible thing. But if you find the spatula method is easier for you for other areas, then more power to you. I think whatever makes it easy on your body, your clients. Oh, this is a biggie, which we were going to go over when we start waxing here. Remember with the spatula, actually I'm not going to use a strip, I'm going to use a 4x4 because they're cheaper. By the way, these 4x4s are going 4x4s, 2x2s, and sugar pots. Sugar pots and the spatula are already in our store, but finally we have affordable 4x4s and 2x2s. I have to price them and put them in the store shortly here. So scooping all around. Now I went through cleaning the tool and how quickly everything dissolves last night, so watch the other video if you missed it. You pull the bulk of the sugar off with something that's not going to fall apart. If you do that with Kleenex, you're going to be laughing. It's going to look like you TP'd a bunch of sugar there. So even if you do that, you just put it all in hot water. The hotter, the faster it dissolves. Then dissolve this, then put it in your quats and soak for the allotted amount of time for whichever solution you're using. Then you can reuse this over and over and over. You can also get a set of these. Why is the spatula so long? We're going to have different sizes. This is the large one. So if you were doing a back, you might get enough sugar on here that you're actually doing strips this wide, you know, something that's not possible with your hands. So you want them wide for certain, or you're doing someone's calf, you know, you can do it in much larger, wider sections, but your hand isn't that wide. When the sugar gets wider than your fingers, it's really, really hard to remove, okay? So waxing. Now I don't have my soft warmed, but the second way that you can use this, if you need to, because it was designed as a cold paste, is I recommend warming it. It really works ideally when you're waxing. So waxing, you can use the soft or the original. And Vanessa, I'm not sure. Let's see. Sorry, I got a hiccup again on the video. I hope you can all see me. But the soft is a lot of times a preference for larger areas of the body with waxing. Definitely for hot rooms, hot bodies, sweaty bodies, really sensitive areas, you need to use original as your wax, okay? And we've had a lot of feedback and a lot of testing from estheticians who use it. I can't believe I was going through our growth this year, and I can't believe we have, so see the soft, my spatula goes right in. This is going to demo waxing without heating the soft, but you want the sugar to apply really thin when you're waxing. Now you can get a set of the small stainless steel spatulas. If you have enough of them, you can use a whole bunch of those and then sanitize them. But it'll be a little investment initially into getting enough small spatulas. Maybe I can get a good enough price that we can make a package deal for waxing so you have reusable spatulas, because they're so easy to clean off, you know, between clients. And make sure that when you spread the sugar on as a wax, you go in waxing direction. Okay, here is the critical point. Do not call sugar waxing sugaring. If you get a client who's had sugaring done, even if you're using a spatula and calling it sugaring here in the US, if somebody has been sugared before with the hand method, you're going to have to educate your client on what you're doing if they're familiar. So what I'm doing now is, see that my body heat is doing the work, warming it up. So you can pull this. I mean, this sugar is so versatile. You warm it up ideally if you're doing large areas and you need to move quickly. But if you were going mobile or you were needing to use some of the soft right out of the jar, you can. Just make sure when you're waxing with it that you spread it really thin, okay? It doesn't do well, and something cool that you can't typically do with strip waxes is if it's still too thick right there, you can go back and just thin it out. So you want it really thin. You can let this sit as long as you want. It will not time out. Here's the major issue. If someone is sweating at all, sweat's going to build up really quickly and cause a little bit of a situation underneath the sugar if you're waxing with it. Also, the sugar is really sticky, so if you're not used to it, you might touch it and this will happen. Don't panic. If it gets really bad, get a little wipe with water on it and just dissolve it real quick. But in the middle of your service, you're going to coat your finger, you know, just coat your gloves with powder, and you're going to get cleaner and cleaner and cleaner using this as a wax. So a lot of times I don't need, you know how you kind of have to rub the strip on with a lot of waxes? A lot of times I can just do one quick rub. Let's do it here and I'll show you. One and go. So this is really fast. If you get, see this flung a little, if you get your sugar too thick or it starts to get too warm and sweaty underneath the strip, oh look, I have a friend attached itself there. So it was a little bit too thick still right here because I didn't have it preheated. So remember, you can pack, I don't know if any of you, there's well, there's no way around really saying who it is, but New Freeze had a system that's been a favorite for estheticians, and part of the reason is you can pack a lot of the strip wax onto the strip. You can do the exact same thing with sugar wax, and not only that, it's really truly the most organic, environmentally friendly wax that's out there is going to be organic sugars. Now here's another fun fact. I tried several years ago, before I had my own company, I tried to use a bunch of other companies' sugars, the ones that they recommended as waxes, and for some reason, because they weren't cold sugar formulas, they were different formulas, it did not work at all. I could not get them to function as a wax at all, even with my sugaring knowledge. So it's really, really important that you have the right formula. If, again, formula, if you're waxing, sugaring, whatever you're doing, there's quite a big difference in formulas. And everyone's going to have their favorites potentially with companies, but we've had quite a few estheticians say they came from another formula and that this formula is so much better and so different that they can't believe it, like I was telling you guys in the beginning. So, is it good to use on really coarse hair for Brazilians? Absolutely. Sugar gets hair as short as a 1/16 of an inch, okay? So it can get amazingly short hair, and you cannot do that with wax. It's actually something super important I didn't cover with waxing and sugaring. Waxing is, you know, I mean, it's about 1/4 of an inch almost all the time, maybe with hard wax going backwards and, you know, figure eighting and being creative with some hard wax, you can get 1/8 of an inch, but you're lucky to get, you know, some of it, and usually not all of it easily. With sugar, it's super easy to get a 1/16 of an inch, but you're going to need to practice with seeping the hair. Oh, I'm frozen, somebody says. Let's see. Excuse me if you saw my boxes behind there. Let's see. Okay, so I think everybody can see me. So let's see. Remember, with waxing, with sugar, the only way you're going to get a 1/16 of an inch is if you're sugaring paste method, okay? Not waxing. Waxing with sugar reduces a lot of pain, usually about 75%, but remember that you are not going to be able to remove hair at a 1/16 of an inch when you're using sugar as wax, because you're not seeping the hair, the sugar into the follicle and removing it in the direction that the hair is growing, which is different when you're waxing with it. So we saw prep at the beginning. For finishing, whether you're waxing using a spatula sugaring or using your hand sugaring, you're going to need, first, I wet a wipe with water before I do anything. At this point, if you've got a tiny piece of sugar you need to put on there, make sure that your wipe is soaked. So it should be soaked enough that you get a little bit of water coming out when you squeeze it like that. It needs to be really, really wet, okay? Then spray the skin. This is important because it's not going to have the same antiseptic effect if you spray it on a wipe and then you're moving everything around like we were talking about. Wipe down, let's see, there's a little piece of sugar. You can see how fast it dissolves. Gone. Let me see. There's one little line of sugar here, but it's that quick. I mean, it all dissolves. Make sure you go over it a few times to make sure everything is dissolved. You'll see that the sugar will start to build up that color, so you can see how much residue there actually is. If you leave any residue, the glycolic in the lemon juice in the sugar is going to eat away at the raw follicles, and you don't want to do that, okay? And then you're going to add your finishing product. This is the 10% oxygen plus sunflower elixir. I love that product for home care, and you're going to use a little bit, and this is good because it's over applying a little bit. let me see if you guys can even see how much, see over here how there's no sheen, but you can see how it's kind of sort of hard to see on video, but it's too thick. It's kind of slimy, shiny. If it gets that way, you take the dry corners, because you put your oil right here, okay, and you don't need much, whether it's coconut balm or elixir. And remember that this helps discourage bacteria. This helps discourage a lot of histamine from forming. It flushes everything out. There's a lot of good studies on wound healing, on ozonated products in general. They've been around since the 1800s, and they're well studied, but for some reason no one's picked them up in our industry and taught about it. I was kind of flabbergasted, you know, but I'm an amazing sourcer of ingredients, and you know, obviously I think outside the box. So I think part of it, you know, has to do with who's running companies, and you know, everybody's got their own focuses and ideas. So take the dry edge to wick up the excess that you've left behind. Do not leave your clients oily where they're coating their clothes. Or I had a client tell me every time someone works on her, except me, this was a long time ago when we retrained everyone, but every time someone else worked on her, they didn't wipe up the excess when they applied it to her eyebrows. And she said, I'd go out and my bangs would get coated with oil. That should not be happening. They shouldn't be like grease ball, you know, when they're leaving. It's just a nice thin coat that is going to soak in, whether it's the balm or the elixir. Warm room, 75 to 77 degrees and 55% humidity. Will that cause issues with cold sugars? Been discouraged with warm sugars in my room. Strip sugar waxing as a result. So our formula is going to be really compatible in that situation. Believe it or not, I did 2 different videos that I thought would be a disaster, potentially. I hadn't done it. I did a Brazilian and an underarm. Those are 2 of the stickiest, hardest areas in those temperatures. And I did a full Brazilian. It's the extreme heat challenge that was on Vimeo. So you might need to go to our Sugar Love business page and look up Extreme Heat Challenge, and you can watch the Vimeo video with the passcode. You can still be searched and pulled up on our Sugar Love business page through Facebook. And I did a Brazilian in 99 degrees. It was 99 degrees when I started. Super humid, everybody was red and sweating, and I did half firm and half original, and it worked perfectly, like normal sugar. So it's all about how you blend. It's not about certain conditions not working at all for sugar. All right, let's see. What did you use before the elixir? Oh, I'm sorry. We used mainly the antioxidant, the blemish toner, because it has high antiseptic properties. It helps strip, you know, the oils off the skin when you're prepping, and it helps have a little bit of an antiseptic effect afterwards. We also like to use the cucumber and aloe toner. Is also just as compatible, but it's got a little bit less oil stripping capabilities. This is going to pick the oils and whatnot up better when you're prepping the skin. But you can finish with our cucumber toner. You can even prep with our cucumber toner if you run out of the antioxidant one. Yes, Luann, always spray directly on the skin, because otherwise you're not completely cleaning some areas. Sometimes you're just moving things around. All right. And I went over before and after care in another video this week. So if you're wondering what your client should do at home, then those other 2 webinars I did, they're on YouTube already. somehow, by some miracle, I got them on there quickly. So this one will also go on YouTube. This is going to be a really long one. And this will remain in our groups. So you can also look up my name in the search function of the group, and you can pull up any of my posts or videos. I also found a way, if you go on Facebook for this and you go where the little drop down is where you can do notification settings, there's a way to bookmark the videos, and then through your personal profile there's an area where it saves them there. So you can save them on Facebook with a quick bookmark, which I don't know that I was able to do that with posts, but with these live videos you can save them. Thank you, everybody. I'm so sorry this was like double the time, but that demo and getting into detail was really important. So hopefully those who needed to hop off after an hour could, and everybody can come back and reference everything later. So remember, we've got a couple websites. Sugaringprofessional.com is all about sugaring our classes and Sugar Love. And then our store is jessaskincare.com. And remember that we train online in sugaring as well. So if you're in a remote area or you couldn't schedule a class anywhere, it's one-on-one. I've actually heard that some of the training going on with sugaring certifications, which was kind of shocking to me, one person called us and said that they were working on themselves, and then they had to send a video off, and then they would get feedback back on that video, and that was the certification of how to learn sugaring. That's not going to work. That is not going to succeed. You can't work on yourself to learn. You can't get the right angles. And then we have people bring a model for their Skypes, and it's a one-on-one session. You do a couple hours at a time, you know, or we can set up to 2-hour blocks at a time. And you are working one-on-one with one of our teachers. We actually don't even, you know, profit, so to speak, on doing those, but we're giving that to you guys because we want people in remote areas that have been having trouble scheduling trainings, which is a big problem, to be able to start whenever they want and get the kind of attention that they want. And if you want a one-on-one training and you live in the Bay Area, you can set that training up the same way. We can only do 2-hour blocks at a time. We can't dedicate a whole day, unfortunately, unless we have a class of people. But we can book up to 2 hours at a time, and you can be trained one-on-one. So we have a lot of options. And look out for our master class coming soon, which will be so much fun. I'm really excited. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.